Hi, and welcome to the show. For the second week in a row, I failed to get the show out on time. Last week, I actually recorded this show and then realized I had made a mistake with my audio. With my recorder, I didn't have it set up right, and I had some static through the first half of it, and it was all completely unusable. I've gone over, and I think first or second episode, I'll link it up below, what exactly my method for recording and syncing is. So if you're interested in that, I could show it to you. But it was just an amateur mistake of not double checking everything before I put everything away and was done. And then I took off and went to Columbus for the weekend. So I didn't have time to get it finished, and this is the first night I've had the chance to work on it. So yeah, down in Columbus was cool. I actually shot a video of that, which I'll link up below too. I brought my GoPro along and shot footage for a lot of the things we went and did. We went to the Columbus Beer Fest, rented some bikes, and got around town a little bit, visited with my friend Brad and his friend. So it's cool. Made a little video, kind of in the style of, like a Ted Forbes from the Art of Photography travel video. It's the first time I've tried to do that, put a little music in from one of my friends. So that was cool. And it also was the first time I realized that my GoPro does seem to be fully functional. I had no problems even on the bike ride, so that must have recorded at least 15, 20 minutes at a time, and it did not shut down. So if you've been following along, I've posted in other videos on Facebook and here on YouTube that it just had a problem with the thing just turning off for no reason. And it seems to be fixed. I don't know if it was the memory card issue or what, but regardless, it seems to be working, and I'm happy that that's not something I'm going to have to deal with, I believe. So I've had a few questions. Some people have asked me about my vintage bike collection that you could see in the background here sometimes, and they've seen I've made biking videos before. I will hopefully do a video on that, or maybe when I do some biking videos, I'll show a little bit what I'm riding for people who are interested in. The other big mistake I made last week, besides messing up the show, is on Friday night, I went to Akron Bike Party, which is the third Friday of every month. There's a group bike ride. It's just like a fun, slow roll around the neighborhoods of Akron, different route every time. And I brought my GoPro with me. I was going to film myself riding what I consider my winter bike, which is a 1987 Schwinn World Sport. It's just one that I don't quite worry about as much getting salty, or last night it was drizzling, or having to keep it clean. I paid $25 for it and only put a little bit of money in to get it rideable. But get to bike party, start to get out the GoPro, wondering why I won't record. Forgot to put the SD card in it. I had been testing out some camera angles on the bike earlier in the studio that day, and so then when I went to put them in the computer and see what I had and what it looked like, I never put the card back into the camera. So a couple rookie mistakes slowed me up last week, but I still did at least get one video out. Anyways, this week, what I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit was my what I bring with me, the gear, another gear video on what I bring with me when I travel on the road to do shoots that require lighting. I already did a video on what I bring just for events, and I'll link that up below too. But so this week's pairing is a Sierra Nevada single hop, Cascade hop beer, and a Bowen's Travel Light 750. The Travel Light 750s are what I inherited from the owner of the studio, who's a retired photographer. They're great lights. As you can see, they have a strobe, and they have the modeling light, which comes in, which is really, really nice for autofocusing when sometimes you're in a darker place. You have all the settings here. It's marked, in kind of half stops, but it's just a dial, so you can slide wherever you need it to be. Also a light for the modeling light, for a switch for the modeling light, how powerful it is. This is for, if you turn the light down, it these are single, like mono lights, so it stores the charge in the light. So if you have it set at 1/4, then turn it down to 1/8, you have to fire it once to get it to that point. They do have optical triggers. I trigger them with the PC port in my camera and a sync cable to the, what is that, a 1/4 inch in the back. And so I link up to one usually, and then that optically triggers the other ones I might have set up. Which leads me to an interesting thing that I noticed with the new camera, the 5D Mark IV, which again is recording this, is when I use my sync cable and the app to take some test shots, and I was at the Akron Public Library shooting some graduation shots. I was doing a simple 2-light setup, like a soft box for the key light and some fill with an umbrella, but I couldn't get the flashes to fire with the PC port being used when I was trying to do my test shots with the app. So I was like, that's a little weird. And then I realized when I made the video about the app that I couldn't use a pocket wizard, these radio triggers, which are, I always bring as a secondary way to fire stuff in case the lights, can't be within range, or sometimes even seems like if tow motors are going around when I'm at some kind of shoots, they'll set off the optical trigger, so I need to use radio slaves. The camera would not work when I'm using the app with the radio slaves either. So it doesn't seem to make much sense to me, but if I put the flash on and then trigger all the lights optically, I have no problem. So it's a little confusing to me why the camera can fire a signal to the hot shoe to the camera flash, but not to a radio trigger. Or, I mean, even to the PC for that matter, but especially with the hot shoe, you would think when you have, it's doing the same thing. You always have the camera on manual, and I always have the flash on manual, and basically this just needs to get a little charge. It's just not much more technology than a garage door opener, and why that wouldn't work is confusing. If anyone knows, I would love to hear their opinion. I did a couple Google searches, but it's kind of a confusing, it's a hard term to look up, you know what I mean? So maybe I just need to look a little more extensively and see if I could figure anything like that out. Anyways, I bring 4 of these. And for the portrait session, like I said, I only needed 2 for this. They weren't environmental portraits. They were just simple kind of portraits of graduates, and with the way their hat was, I didn't really need a hair light or any kind of anything else. But I still always bring 4, even though I knew I'd probably only want to do a 2-light portrait, just in case something doesn't work. These aren't exactly, I have a couple different vintages of them. Some of the newer ones are a little more plasticky than these old solid metal ones, but you never know, something could go wrong. And I've had one actually start smoking on me once. So always, like I've said, backups of everything, the 2 cameras, the 2 memory cards, and then more lights than you need. Later in the week, I did some product photography out at a tow motor scale company. Same thing, I only ended up using 2 lights. The things I was lighting were pretty simple, and it was just kind of a couple lights set up at a 45-degree angle. But in those situations, not only do I like to have backup lights, but a lot of times something will get sprung on me when I'm there. They'll be like, oh, this just got finished, can we shoot this? So sometimes I end up needing to bring out a 3rd light because I'm doing something I didn't expect, so I always kind of want to plan for that. So besides the lights, obviously the stands, the softbox, extra umbrellas, all kinds of just the modifiers. Sometimes I bring grid spots for portraits. I'll use those. Sometimes for, like I said, a hair light, or kind of putting like I guess what you call rim light type look on things. You never know when you could use those for product photography. A lot of times they come in handy. Out at the scale company this time, I just brought my portrait backdrop and used that behind the scales. And the reason I do that is because the designers that I'm shooting for are going to clip the images out and drop them onto, maybe a banner for a trade show or whatever the trade publications they'll put them on, stuff like that. Or even in advertising, they're going to put a gradient behind it and, copy and all that kind of stuff. So it just helps them out. If I'm shooting bigger things, I actually do have the big rolls of paper, and I will bring them with me, big rolls of seamless, stuff like that. So extra stands for, the seamless and things like that, just trying to make the designers' jobs easier. So it is kind of a bulky situation. I bring extra extension cords. I never know where the power is going to be. I really like the kind where the end lights up, so when you plug into a power source, it works. Sometimes, like I said, I'm in these big machine shops, or I'm shooting somewhere where the building's been upgraded and this set of power no longer works. Just saves you some time and effort to know it's not your stuff that's not working, it's their plug. Find a new one. Also different adapters, so I could plug in multiple at the same time. But this is pretty much what gets me through every kind of shoot where I'm on location that needs professional lighting, from your industrial type stuff, and it could be or from your environmental portraits where you're lighting up different zones behind, like I do here with a second light, lighting the back and the key light here. So if I'm doing that in a portrait situation, that's what will get me through that, and especially if I'm doing different zones is when the radio triggers come in handy, not just as a backup, but as what you actually have to use. So that's about it for this week. That kind of, like I said, I just wanted to show people a little bit of what I bring. I know there's there's lighter and more efficient ways to travel. I really like having the power of this kind of light, you know, a 750 watt second light. If you need to shoot wide open, I'm wide open. If you need to shoot stopped way down, you can. So it's pretty cool. And then, as I said, Sierra Nevada, I saw this in the store the other day, focusing on the Cascade hop. It's basically like a super amped up version of the original. If you know anything about craft beer, you definitely know the flavor of a Cascade hop, and they really showcase it in this beer. I definitely recommend it. So beer gets an A from me. I will see you again on Friday. Cheers.